Our next chapter is going to consider deviance and social control. We'll be considering what societies deem to be deviance and why this is often a social construct. We'll also look at how societies sanction deviant behavior, and we'll consider the sociological, the psychological, and the sociobiological explanations for deviance. We're also going to be looking at how theories would explain deviance and consider the criminal justice system and how it deals with deviance.
So, what exactly is deviance? This concept refers to actions that are a violation of a norm, whether it's a tiny infraction or the most serious of behaviors. What is socially acceptable is a matter of social construct. And as the sociologist Howard Becker would say, it's not the act itself, but the reaction to the act that makes something deviant. In this way, it's a social construct. Symbolic interactionists help us understand that deviance is relative, that there's no uniformity amongst cultures as to what is deviant. Social life is made possible by agreed-upon norms, so society has to have a manner in which to monitor compliance with those norms. Deviance and the reaction to deviance is the mechanism how that's done. We've talked about sanctions already, and that there can be positive and negative sanctions. They can be formal and informal. An informal negative sanction would be being publicly criticized by a colleague or being shunned by a group of people. Formal sanctions follow a set of policy, rules, or laws. A fine and a monetary judgment in a civil court case would be a negative sanction, or in a criminal case, a sentence to jail or prison. We're controlled through society's reaction to deviance, and most people will comply with social norms in order to avoid being stigmatized by society. This aspect of social stigma controls our behavior when sanctions are mild, whereas self-interest might be a more valid motivation to follow social rules if a fine or a jail sentence might be imposed. There are different ideas about why we engage in deviant behaviors. Biosocial explanations assume we engage in deviant behavior due to something inherent in the individual, that our genetic makeup is different, or that we might have some kind of modification from stress or other environmental factors that predispose us to deviant behavior. In the 1960s, theories circulated about violent offenders having an extra Y chromosome because a very small handful of violent offenders were found to have that genetic makeup. This theory has since been disproven. Biosocial explanations are still currently being explored, with some theorists considering the effect of stress on children in regards to their biosocial reactions to difficult situations. Psychologists tend to consider personality disorders, and that people don't conform to social norms may have deviating personalities. But there are no specific childhood experiences that are linked to deviating personalities. There's no one single childhood experience that makes a child grow up to be good or bad, i.e., there's no inevitable outcome for any one experience that makes or breaks us in the long run. Sociological explanations focus on factors outside the individual. They look for the social factors and what kind of influence might recruit someone to break norms. Sociologists would look at the dysfunction of a neighborhood or memberships in subcultures or the people that one associates with as factors that might lead to the violation of norms, such as committing crimes. The three sociological perspectives would be used to help understand why deviance occurs. Those perspectives are functionalism, symbolic interactionism, and conflict theory, which could all help us understand why deviance occurs. The symbolic interactionist perspective considers that we are thinking human beings that act in accordance to how we interpret situations. Edwin Sutherland used the term differential association to explain that the different groups that we associate with teaches us to deviate from or to conform to society's norms. These groups give us messages about conformity and deviance. Even if there are mixed messages, one of those messages will tend to dominate, and we wind up with that message. We get a variety of messages from friends, from family, our neighborhoods that we grow up in, and the subcultures that we are a member of. Eventually, certain messages are internalized, and we act on those beliefs without even thinking about them. The great question this all begs is how much freedom we have, or are we destined by society to act out certain roles, for some people to conform and others to be deviant? If we're aware and focused, we can help to produce our own orientations towards life. However, this is not always an easy task, and social constraints may dictate that some people are less free than others. Control theory then asks the question, if there are so many temptations, why doesn't everyone bust loose and do what they want, rather than worry about what society tells them to do? Control theory states that we have inner controls, including an internalized morality from our conscience, from religion, and those ideas of right and wrong that we've learned from society, as well as fears of punishment that all control us. We also have outer controls such as family, friends, and our local law enforcement that helps us think about the consequences so that we don't deviate. Labeling theory also allows us to think about how society imposes labels on people. Labeling explains that the significance behind deviance is not the act itself, but how society reacts to the act. People may try to reject labels or neutralize them. One way in which a person might neutralize a label is to say, well, yes, I did it, but it was because of such and such, and I'm not responsible then. Social control can happen on the informal level with friends and family, or perhaps even someone like a coworker weighing in. When the police get involved, that's considered a formal sanction. Not only social disapproval is involved, but other tangible consequences such as fines or incarceration may be imposed. Sociologists speak in terms of neutralization, which is how people try to neutralize or deflect labels. The types of things people might say to neutralize a label could include, I was so mad I couldn't help myself, or who really got hurt? Or don't you think she deserved that after what she did? Or who are you to talk? Or I had to help my friends. Wouldn't you have done the same things? These are all aspects of what sociologists would call neutralization. On the other hand, some people will embrace the deviance label. In fact, they may enjoy reactions of shock to their nonconformance. Embracing a label is different than neutralizing it, which comes from a place of denial of responsibility. Embracing a label takes the form of someone wanting a reaction and in turn having a so what if type of attitude towards society's disapproval.